Protests in Mali have been growing for weeks, resulting in thousands marching through the streets calling for President Boubacar Keïta to step down, despite international mediation efforts to resolve a political crisis. The political unrest began after the country's top constitutional court overturned results from disputed parliamentary elections, paving the way for Keïta's party to occupy a majority of the vacant seats. Disputes over the polls have also sparked post-electoral violence in several districts in the capital and other towns in March. The discontent has also been driven by economic issues and young people fleeing with rising unemployment. Even regional body ECOWAS tried to wade in, sending a delegation made up of presidents of Nigeria, Ghana, Niger, Senegal and Côte d'Ivoire to President Keïta to try to negotiate and end the political crisis. The opposition, a group called M5RFP, whose figurehead is Saudi-trained Muslim cleric Mahmoud Dicko, said it would not quit the protests until President Keïta steps down, raising concerns in neighboring countries of a protracted crisis. Things, however, took a swift turn late Tuesday afternoon when a group of soldiers surrounded Keïta's home, detaining him and top government officials. It was the most quiet coup ever. Images later posted on social media showed Keïta and Prime Minister Boubou Cissé in military convoy surrounded by armed soldiers said to be at the Kati garrison. The state broadcaster went offline after the spate of detentions before coming back on air in the early evening. Confusion ensued as it was not clear who was leading the mutineers, who would govern in Keïta's absence, or what the mutineers' motivations were. On hearing news of soldiers mutinying against the president, opposition supporters celebrated at Independence Square in Bamako. Gunfire had been heard in the morning at the army base in Kati outside of Bamako. Hours later, the confusion cleared as President Keïta announced his resignation in a brief address broadcast on state television. Looking tired and wearing a surgical mask, recognizing what he called the moment of truth, he thanked the people of Mali for joining him throughout the years and announced the dissolution of the National Assembly and the government.
Welcome back. Well, let's take a look at what transpired there in Mali as the news broke yesterday. And the matter is still developing. Paul Ejima joins us now. He's an international affairs analyst from our studios in Abuja. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Well, about this scenario in Mali, well, yes, much as African countries lately try to discourage this kind of events, as it were. But what do you see? First of all, were you surprised that this happened? Because, yes, you kept tabs with it and saw some of these things developing, and how it is playing out at the moment. What do you see happening?
Thanks for having me, and good morning, viewers. Issue whether there was surprise. No, I think it was an accident that was waiting to happen. The recipes were there for something that perhaps nobody will predict, but going by experience, you will know that this should be expected. And particularly for Mali, looks like a playback of what happened 8 years ago, 2012, if you remember. There was a Captain Senegal who took over power from the former president, Tumani Ture, over a similar issue and circumstance. And that was actually what happened that led to President Keita taking power after an election. The military took power for a brief moment and then held an election which Keita won, and then also won re-election in 2018, but he has not served out the second mandate. So everything that could go wrong was on ground. One, insecurity, poverty, allegations of embezzlement or corruption, and then, governance was absent because about more than 30% of the territory of Mali is not under the control of the government in Bamako. And then terrorism and attacks, not limited to even Mali, was extending to neighboring countries like Burkina Faso, Niger, costing lives, more than 3,000 lives. And so northern Mali had become a breeding ground for terrorism and insecurity. You have ISIS there, you have Al-Qaeda, and all sorts. And there also, the Arabs and Tuaregs, since independence of Mali, have also been asking for their own independence because they feel they have been marginalized and there is no development. So that is the scenario that was there. And then, so there were immediate and remote causes. One of the immediate ones was the election that was conducted in March, April. Very contentious and fractious, happening under a pandemic, and the ruling party of President Keita did something that the opposition have been against. The Constitutional Court had to give 31% of the seats to the ruling party, and the opposition cried foul. Those were some of the issues that gave rise, and the rest they say is, it's history. That ECOWAS had to come in.
Right down the screen
became the order of the day.
Exactly. So let me pick up on that point.
Killings.
We can see some of the images on screen now happen to be protests of those in support of the move by the military. So how ECOWAS and other regions, the world, how do you suggest they take into consideration these kind of people on the street, the protesters who are supporting it, while they react, saying, no, that is unacceptable?
Well, I think it flows from the fact that when ECOWAS was doing the mediation, the accusation was that they pandered so much towards to save a sitting government, that they didn't listen to the people. And I think that is what they are saying, that now that the military has come, professing to be, standing for the people, the committee they set up says it's the committee for the salvation of the people. Well, it means maybe the people have needed salvation. So the military has offered it. So what is happening is that you needed to go down over to understand the dynamics of what was happening. I think that was the accusation they have against the ECOWAS approach. Remember, former President Jonathan went there. After that, the 5 leaders had to go, which really was putting the cart before the horse. Before a meeting was held to now decide what should have been done. So it should have been a meeting and then continue with the envoy issue before you now wield the big stick. Anyway, but that is now behind us. So what was happening was that the people felt that they have not been listened to. And they have shown this by embracing the military, the soldiers and the military takeover. But of course, it's usually the case. After all, I think some former military leaders will tell you that they acted on behalf of the people, that is the civilians that, or politicians that are pushing them. But it's neither here nor. I think perhaps there is the feeling, if you didn't think about an action, there has to be the plan, conception, before it now happens. So you don't say somebody pushed you to it. But that is as far as it goes. So back to your question, military rule is an aberration, can never be. I mean, that was in the past, before the wave of multi-party system, democracy. Now Africa should be talking about consolidation of democracy. It's not fighting these fires. But it becomes inevitable, given the kind of, bad governance, not bad government, because government can be bad, but when you have bad governance, governance now speaks to about the contracts between the government and the people. Who are you able to keep to that contract of protecting lives and property, of respecting human rights, of providing the basic needs, the welfare, security, economic welfare, social, services, the basics that makes, for life. If those are lacking, that is what governance speaks to. But government, you can get a group of people. In fact, 3 of us can form a government, but how do we govern? And that is where governance now comes in.
Now, let me go back to the question that Chimilin, just asked you, and let's take it this way. So on the one hand, the people are happy there's been a military push that's pushed out, so to speak, the civilian government that's not giving them what they expect. On the other hand, is the international community saying military rule in any part of the world is no longer acceptable. Now, there is that dynamic that, of course, governments of the world, the same governments that have been complaining about the military, takeover in Mali now, they knew that the government of the day in Mali wasn't doing as well as it ought, and that the people weren't getting the better hand of the stick, so to speak. What do you think could have been done that wasn't done before this kind of thing happened, and how do we stave it off going forward?
Okay, well, I think we have to look at it this way. They say the person that wears the shoes, feels the pinch. You can visit from outside. So there is internal and external factors that you need to consider, because you cannot, the late Chief Abiola will say that you can't shave somebody's hair in his absence. So you cannot love somebody with all your good intentions. You have to take their interests at heart, taking their interests at heart, knowing their pain, feeling their pain, and how to now resolve it, diagnose it, and then offer treatment. I think when you have a bad or faulty diagnosis, you are going to end up with a wrong treatment. In negotiation, it's about give and take. I think the opposition that now have, will say they have the support of the people. I don't think anything was, considered to them. ECOWAS came and said, listen, join the national government, the government of national unity, and then you cannot remove somebody who was elected. Meanwhile, the same ECOWAS was also recommending that 31 MPs that were elected should resign. So you can see the contradiction. So this is part of the problem that you have. You needed now to synchronize this, what is happening nationally, and then external interventions should should try to cement or solidify. But they cannot be, because they are not the ones living in the country to know what happens. It's like obtaining a court case against your neighbor. But the bailiff cannot stay with you for the whole for the lifetime. You have to make some peace with your neighbor so that they say your neighbor is your greatest security person you should have.
Speaking about neighbors,
anybody helping
Mr. Jimmy,
the case in Mali, yes.
Let me jump in and ask you. Speaking about neighbors, I mean, in West Africa still, let's switch to developments in Ghana. It's not the first time that this kind of narrative is making the rounds about Nigerians in Ghana who have complained about certain policies that the Ghanaian authorities are requesting of them. Now, the latest one happens to be when the Nigerian shops have been locked. They say the Ghana Investment Promotion Council is asking them to provide permits or clearance. Perhaps after they're supposed to pay $1 million. And so reading that, it sounds, difficult to internalize that request is actually being put out there by the authorities. Now, you also have kept an eye on that. What do you think of it?
Well, it's not a new case. That is what baffles. Because and each time it comes up, something like this, some dramatic will happen, you find and then protests, and it ends there. I think that is what has, they have allowed the issue to fester. Ghana has what it calls a code, investment code that requires foreigners to put on the ground $1 million before you do business. And you wonder how petty traders can raise that kind of amount. So it's not today. But, 2007, 2013. So it's been recurring. But what has happened is that there hasn't been a resolve, particularly by the Nigerian government, to address it. And that brings in ECOWAS. ECOWAS has, a number of rules and protocol. Once you have acceded to it, you have signed and ratified that, you are surrendering part of your sovereignty. Some people will say, well, Ghana has a right to make rules and then everybody, of course. But you also must, if you're a signatory to a protocol or a convention or an instrument, you have to also concede and then abide by it. There is, a disconnect between what that code is saying and what the ECOWAS protocols are saying on free movement, for instance, and then grants you the right for residence and establishment. You are now virtually treated as a citizen of that same country. Because what it's saying, if you are an ECOWAS citizen, you can move to, cross to the next country and stay for up to 90 days without visa. ECOWAS boasts of a region that is, visa-free. Right. I don't think there are others that do that. So it don't trample on those, fine achievements and accomplishments and progress that has been made. These are some of but it should be expected in a club of 15 member countries. You can have issues, frictions like this, but it depends now on how you now address it, so that it does not begin, continue to manifest from time to time. I think the Nigerian authorities have not given sufficient attention to that. And Ghana is now taking advantage of it because nothing has happened. I think they should put it, address it once and for all.
All right,
let's an instrument of a national law that is against that of the region. You now see how you harmonize. In fact, that's part of what ECOWAS does.
Let's bring in Professor Amechi here. Just hang on a minute.
Integration means that...
Just hang on a minute, Mr. Jimmy. Let's bring in Professor Kenneth Amechi, who is a chair in Business and Sustainable Development, University of Edinburgh. Joins us via Skype this morning from London. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Well, I haven't heard Mr. Jimmy saying, look, we need to address this. What do you suggest?
Good morning. I think his points are clear, but one can also look at it from different perspectives. And what I see happening here is, from a political economy perspective, is a neglect of what I may call the micro entrepreneurs. And he said Nigeria has not paid attention to them, and that's true. if you look at most of our policies, they tend to be focused on the big companies, big investments. But what shows here clearly is that the micro entrepreneurs have been neglected, even by ECOWAS. So Ghana has the right to protect the micro entrepreneurs, and largely you may call them the informal sector guys. But in reality, they are also there for business. They create jobs, they create opportunities, and they exploit them. And I don't see anything wrong in Ghana paying attention to that segment of society, even if Nigeria doesn't pay attention to it. So I think for me, it's a question for ECOWAS, it's a question for Ghana and Nigeria to think of how the micro entrepreneurs, the petty traders can be taken into cognizance in whatever we do, especially at the policy level. And it shows a blind spot in our policy-making perspectives.
Well, you've said that Ghana is making efforts to protect its own micro enterprises, and that's precisely what it is. Because if you look at there's a law in Ghana, the Ghana Investment Promotion Center Act of 2013, that says that there are certain businesses that are exclusively for Ghanaians. These are the petty trading, the markets. You can't, sell anything in the markets, or can't do petty trading. You can't hawk. You can't even sell recharge cards if you're not a Ghanaian, and you can't even operate taxi cabs and all of that. That's on the one hand. On the other hand is the ECOWAS Protocol Article 2 that says you have a right to move into these areas to establish businesses in any member state. Now, it would seem like this Ghana law is at direct variance with the law of the ECOWAS protocol. How do we then begin to marry both?
I'm not an expert when it comes to the legal dimensions and the technicalities. And I know that lawyers are very creative, and there are opportunities to take advantage of loopholes. So I think what matters here might be one scrutinizing that ECOWAS policy you've mentioned or regulations. I read somewhere that they allow for only 90 days for business transactions, but one can stretch it and say, well, are we not all citizens of ECOWAS? Therefore, we have rights as any other citizens of countries within the ECOWAS region. But it could also be an oversight on the part of Ghana, because they were talking about foreigners. But here, who are the foreigners? Are they people outside ECOWAS, or are they people from other countries within ECOWAS? So I think that has not been well articulated, and hopefully it gives room to scrutinize the ECOWAS policy or regulations you have highlighted. But also look at it the other way around. The Ghanaians also have a right to protest or do whatever they are doing, because Nigeria chose to close the borders, for example. So what Nigeria did there, to what extent did it fit in with the ECOWAS policies and regulations? So Nigeria can use security and other reasons to do things in the continent, in the region. But we also need to consider other states and what they will feel about some of the policies we execute in Nigeria. So as a big brother to most of these countries, Nigeria should also lead by example. And they are there watching, and we can't continue to lord it over them. Then we do whatever we like, whenever we like, in relation to the ECOWAS, and then we expect others to play by the rules. I think that's the hypocrisy of a different order, if you ask me.
But how do you say it's hypocrisy? Because, Nigerians who live in Ghana tell us that, look, they pay yearly for what they say is non-citizens identification card to access in ECOWAS community. And so this is clearly against the ECOWAS protocol, where they're saying there has to be free movement and trade. So if West Africans are supposed to pay for this, they say, look, what's going on? So how does that sit? Should that even be the case?
I agree with the fact that the ECOWAS region, if we are to operate as an economic region, needs to be properly harmonized. And I don't have anything against that. It's like any other economic bloc in the world. Think about the European Union. If you're a citizen of the UK, you can go to Germany and start a business, and vice versa. But the point I'm making is that we can't be cherry picking. Yes, Ghanaians have done this and they have done that, but we also think about Nigeria. What have we done in Nigeria that have also gone against the ECOWAS policies? So my point about hypocrisy is that we can't expect others to keep to the rules, while from time to time we break the rules ourselves. So and if we sign up to ECOWAS, let's all make it work. If there are bits and pieces to be fine-tuned, why not? They should be looked into. And the point I'm making is that we don't need to grandstand as if we have been keeping the rules ourselves. So, but Ghana has a right to protect their citizens. Ghana has the right to encourage micro-entrepreneurs. And ECOWAS as a whole, I think, also should have pay attention to micro-entrepreneurs. And what this has revealed is that has not been done over the years. We focus a lot more on the big businesses, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the big businesses do not exist in isolation. We also need the ecosystem where the micro-entrepreneurs and SMEs can be carried along. And Ghana appears to be showing a lead on that. It provides an opportunity for ECOWAS to look at that carefully, and also for Nigeria to pay attention to policies that will help the petty traders. They are often not taken into consideration. They are in the what we may consider our own blind spot, policy blind spot. And they are largely considered the informal economy. And that, for me, is a policy problem, not only in ECOWAS, but in the rest of Africa.
Oh, Mr. Jimmy, let me bring you in on this one, because they say there's an international political dimension to some of this, because at the moment they say that Ghana is currently trying to sabotage Nigeria's interest of contesting for the Commissioner of Peace and Security at the African Union. So it appears as though they are coming at us in different ways now.
I think we need to separate issues. And Prof, thank you for raising those issues. But I don't want us to bring apple and oranges together. When we are dealing, I like us to do some disaggregation here and deal with the issues as they come, not lump all of them together. If Nigeria has taken any decision that is against the protocol of ECOWAS, I think you should pinpoint on that and then address it, and not say, well, because Nigeria has done that, so Ghana or another country. When you operate on that level, you are going to get the issue mixed up. So if like this trade is coming, but let's also remember that much of what trade that goes on in West Africa is what you call unofficial. And so, like he was saying, perhaps the laws are, got those who are drafting those on their blind side. Fine. That is why there are amendments to laws, because by the time you are making such laws, perhaps you did not take everything into consideration. That is allowed. So if there is any lacuna, if there is any gap, I think it should be filled, but not at the expense of the citizens. So the authorities, the policymakers will now have to do something. There are those who are experts on trade. They should sit down, and then if, for instance, Nigerians on their side will raise these issues at the various, organs of ECOWAS, the ministerial experts meeting, sector ministry, and then before you get to the authority of heads of state. If you now flag them, they can be addressed on a case-by-case basis. Remember that recently that Ghana also, muddled the waters by the issue of bringing down a building that was supposed to be within Nigeria's embassy. That is, an embassy is a territory of a country. You don't joke with it. That is why you find some people taking refuge there. Things like this should be addressed, case by case, not allow them to lump them, because that is where the issue is. Nigeria ought to, what has happened to that now? Perhaps that case has gone. And now, when the issue of traders have also come up, very soon, 2 weeks, they have stopped. But without resolving that, that is the key to it. So that willingness, that resolve to approach it, both particularly in Nigeria, if you feel hot on an issue, you have to raise it. So maybe Ghana, you say, well, it's not their call. It is Nigeria that is complaining that should do that. But you find it that it happens in so many cases that it's not helping the cause for which ECOWAS was actually set up in 1975. So foster, first it was economic development and then regional integration. It's just that peace and security overtook everything, and so ECOWAS. All right,
we need to go at this point, Mr. Jimmy.
Peacekeeping.
Well, let's not even forget that there's still the after part of this, that it's equally very important. But that's how far we can go. We thank you both, Professor Kenneth Amechi and Paul Ejima, International Affairs expert. Thank you both for talking to us this morning. All right, we'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.
Major among reasons is insecurity. And once the general society perceive that the atmosphere is becoming insecure for them, one of the fallout of that is to turn to government and ask government to do the needful, because one of the primary functions of government is to ensure security of life and property. And any government who is not able to do that is not entitled to continue to remain in power. But it is not by removing that government through a military push or through violent means. It's by using the ballot box to tell that government to please go. You are the wrong person for this job. So it's as simple as that. So it is an unfortunate development, it's because it's taking Africa back again. We don't want a situation where Africa will be looked at as a continent where they cannot rule themselves, a continent invested with violence, war, insecurity. No. So, and this is a lesson for all African leaders.